There was Cinder
Hello.
and Sachiko,
Hi.
two clones carefully navigating a kindergarten with strangers they met along the way.
Alan and Jacob. I remembered them both this time. Holy fuck.
Both of whom had been dragged over by their empty stomachs to investigate the smell of food. Unlike Sin and Sachiko, who were in that nightmare box of a building mostly for knowledge.
Okay, shall we get going?
One of us needs to check over Alice to see how bad she is.
Who was another member of their group, met long before Alan and Jacob, a silent child who had survived the New World ruins mostly through feral aggression and had recently got harmed by the fauna of the kindergarten.
Yeah, I did a general check of her, but I do vet shit, not human shit.
So I take a huge human shit on Alice to see if she's okay.
With your knowledge, Sachiko, and Sen's resources, you both managed to lower her chances of infection drastically.
We were at the park and we went towards the restaurant, so now we've got to backtrack to the park.
Jacob doesn't quite make the roll. On your way through to Dock Street, you, Cinder, notice that little Charlie of Cow Street has spied your group with both of his independently swirling frenzied eyes.
Gun on the kid. Quietly, not gonna shoot unless this kid goes after Jacob.
Both you and your weapon are ready. The unshot Charlie for his turn whines, and new friends start coming out to play.
Mommy says stop.
Now, even though you clearly notice knee-jerks of hesitation in them every time you speak, these mutated monstrous caricatures of children, they keep climbing and crawling through these furniture jungles that they've made of these corridors.
Mommy says stand still. I will back up while I am saying this.
More and more of them appear from their turfs, and you can see basically each family made its own uncanny species almost, through what you guess to be adaptations to their separate playgrounds.
All of you children, go to your room. Mother's love.
Suck fucking cess. As if knowing and calling you by name was not enough, the children then freeze in response to you, as if the maternal and nourishing attitude that your mother's love perk draws on had previously been weaponized against them to deadlier means.
Okay, first I use poof as they're stunned.
You, Sachiko, notice the best bush the park has to offer for hiding.
Point toward the bush. I whisper to her, hide there immediately, and then I myself use escape to get to the bush.
Everyone does so, obviously more concerned with survival than the implications of what just went down. Lucky for you all, the children all then prance and skip back to their kingdoms as well, as if the previous game of hide and seek had been reset.
Are we going to sneak in the park, or are we just going to go and see what's there and then take our lives and escape?
I don't think sneaking is gonna do much. I think it's about numbers. They are animalistic in everything they do.
You two walk really close to us, behind us, so this way we are two rows of people with a child in between. So if it is our numbers that's scaring these, this way we can take most advantage of our number.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Alan bumps rears with the deadpan Alice and jokes about the formation basically being a group hug centered around Alice.
Did he just sexually harass Alice?
Sachiko.
She grabs Alan by the throat and says in a very harsh tone, "Hey dude, what the fuck are you doing?
His brain is not...
If you do that again, I'll kill you myself. Get it?"
After quite a lot of confused apologizing and then tense silence, the scavenge continues.
You all see the corpses Sachiko previously dissected in the park are basically now being torn into these bite-sized meals for the packs of children that are unique to this jungular habitat. And you can notice that a pack of them have surrounded the group from afar, not attacking, but moving with you, sizing you up basically while they're crooked forms are hunched for stealth.
Without breaking the formation, can I pick up a sample of each fruit as we pass by?
Alright, you steal some of the miniature forest's gifts as you venture deeper and deeper. And you know you're watched closely through and through. At a point, the tall trees are replaced by this massive mountain of wet paper documents from the hospital nearby, all partially molten into one mass by some thick mold, kind of forming a moist nest, if you will, that happens to house some strange sounds.
I'm going to tap on Sachiko and say, get on my shoulders for him.
Okay, I do that.
Lift her up to see if she can get a better look.
A better look you indeed do get. You see more and more of the children of this habitat nervously circling a child bloated grotesquely and seemingly painfully, trying to crawl at the center of this paper fort, while a monstrous limb disproportionate in comparison to her own hangs from her prolapsed guts and womb, throwing off her balance as it spasms and whips from between her legs.
That bitch is pregnant.
I climb down and then I say, I'm stumped. Can you think of a way that I can study the cyst closer?
No, I can just fucking use my machete and cut us a path and then disinfect the machete later.
Your skills with the blade prove sufficient, but your proximity to the new pack now adds to your stalkers both in numbers and in confidence.
We either need to take a few of them out to assert dominance or be very careful.
I have no problem with taking a few of them out.
Look for the stronger of these guys, and I'm gonna shoot him.
Success! The shot sinks right through center of mass, one goes down, but the rest flow like a fucking tsunami.
I try to dodge.
Boom, boom.
Alright, you lose only a small amount of inessential flesh, but manage to shoot, and in Alice's case, stab and slice, through basically enough of them for the packs to recede.
Sachiko says jackpot.
Alright, as your stalkers are regrouping, in this extra time you bought yourselves, you manage to get closer to the one suffering at the center.
I use my biology, my careful eye, and all the perks that I have, and I want to understand what was it that has gone wrong, or was it something that has gone right?
Much to your dismay, all seems to have gone right, revealing to you that the childlike monsters around you, through whatever inhuman reproductive means, birth creatures even more dangerous and alien to you than themselves, all as a natural and recurring phase of their life cycle. And from what you've gathered, you feel lucky that the one under your scalpel is immature.
After that round of study, I will give the command to fall back.
Through a mix of logic and luck, you all manage to get out. The east of Cow Street, the market, and Pick Street are all filled with giggle screams and thuds and cracks of the children at play.
Before we go forward, I will look at the wounds and see how deep they are, what the risk of infection is.
Alan and Jacob, 90%.
Oh, Jesus. Alright, cool, awesome. I'm gonna look at them and ask them if they're cloned, by chance.
Already giving up on their flesh, I see. Unfortunately, neither of them are clones.
We have already been to the right side of the map completely. We have cleared it. We have been to the restaurant. So this is my recommendation. Let's go to the Kevin, see what he's up to. Then we will go up the Dock Street. We can ignore the restaurant because we have been there. We go to the Kim's house. Then we go to John's house. Then we go to Tesco and finally to Zoo.
I agree.
As you start walking, Sin, you feel a sudden touch of stealing.
One of these motherfuckers stole something from me. Again, I'm going to look towards where it is gun at the ready.
You try, but unfortunately fail to actually detect anything but scuttles in the corner of your eyes.
I'm going to take the DNA pods and I'm going to hold them in my fist as I walk.
Taking extra care for the remainder of your journey, you make your way through the cavernous furniture, and you can hear the giggles and games that the children now ritualistically play for pack survival begin to get quieter and more faded as you get closer to Kevin's secluded and tumor-filled pillow fort.
What do you say the rest of you wait here? I try to sneak through the furniture. Now, if I see on the other side there's a great danger, I will come back and inform you. But if there is just, and I think this Kevin dude is not dangerous, he can be talked to. If there's just a kid who needs to be talked to, I will talk to him and return. How is that for a plan?
I trust you.
With each step, Sachiko, the walls, the ceiling, and the ground get softer, starting to melt and bulge closed behind you as this garlicky phosphorus scent fills your nostrils.
I'm going to drop on the ground and I'm going to crawl and sneak.
You feel like you're stretching with the walls and kind of stretched forward in this melting tube, almost outside of your own control at this point.
There is something in the air that's making me trip. I think this is going to border on too reckless, so I stand up and I sneak back to where the rest of the gang.
It proves difficult but not impossible.
I know that we want to cover every single part, but I don't think we should risk it.
Cinder warns, but Sachiko's curiosity and obsession wins. Going back in with breathing aid and protection, the confidence given to her by these protective measures get her a step further than the last time, despite all the same effects. A step that takes her from attempts to communicate with Kevin.
Kevin, if you can hear me, I'm not here to harm you. I'm just here to talk.
To forgetting all about Kevin as she fights her father's grasp reaching for her from the melting walls.
Oh, you fucking bastard. I will kill you again if needs be.
The rest of you can hear furniture dropping and also a number of the childlike beings approach from the corner and start peeking with curiosity to see what's going on.
I'm going to have them stay quiet and I'm going to trust Sachiko.
Through a timeless maze of a trip, Sachiko, you finally find yourself at the very lair of Kevin, and you can see rotting corpses just oozing roots into breathing pillows, and Kevin just laying there, chained to an array of heavy shelves.
She approaches the kid in the cage.
Kevin, barely able to carry his oversized and tumor-filled bloated head with his frail body, pulls back and your hallucinations intensify. You feel like deep wounds are beginning to gape and open all over your body.
I know that everything I see is tainted with hallucinations, but I look for the source of the gas thing and I want to see if I can look through the hallucination and realize that something is pumping the gas out.
You do push through successfully, but it only reveals to you the lack of a particular source for the smell, and soon the hallucinations flow back even stronger.
Sachiko extends her arm, opens her palms, and she takes a few careful steps toward the child and says, "Whoever did this thing to you, we want to find them. Just talk to me. Give me information."
Now he takes a step forward, appearing as this overgrown, distressed child that has a hospital bed tied to his back that he carries around with him. He stands closer to you, Sachiko, now seemingly more open to cooperation, but without any of the hallucinations becoming any easier. A few furniture blocks away, Cinder, you notice some of your electronics pick up electromagnetic interference as all of this goes on.
Oh, that's interesting. Noted. Writing that shit down.
Okay, this is actually called in economics the fallacy of diminishing returns, and we are not going anywhere until we get what we came for. So, do you know, I'm a doctor. If you let me look at you without any hallucination, I might be able to help you with any illness that you have.
I don't like doctors, Kevin says, basically digging his words deep into your ears and taking a step back. Yet again, your delirium's still growing at the same rate, by the way.
I am actually an illegal kind of doctor. I've worked for people who fought the hospital.
Kevin steps closer to you again, but his interest has no effect on the mental torture.
Okay, so I'm going to ask some real questions and I'm going to see if I'm getting real answers or not. What did they do to you in the hospital?
They turned me into a monster, Kevin replies, but at this point your mental guards finally break down and let the hallucinations instill deeper into you this fear that mutation into other beings is inevitable for you as well.
I don't know if I'm just languishing in a trap or not, but Sachiko is beyond these things. She says, "Can you tell me where are the people who did this? Where are they now? Just tell me their place and I will leave you."
He squints, hesitating, but then afterwards points to a trapdoor under the shelf he uses as a bed.
I'm going to draw my satchel and shove it in his throat.
Your surprise attack is indeed extremely unexpected, but only affects the hallucination-filled nothingness in front of you, just whooshing through the air.
I turn my back and I run towards the exit.
Towers of furniture start crumbling, but you manage to make your bumpy escape. It takes you 2 steps back to Kevin and then 3 steps away from him, but finally you rejoin the rest, all out of stamina.
Sachiko says, "Oh, Air, it's you. This thing over there wanted to trap us, to kill us."
Are you gonna be good? Do we need to rest for a while? Let's get out of here, away from the oppressive feeling. Let's go back to the Muay Thai building, because we can block ourselves in there for a while. Are you guys okay with that?
I say I'm fine. Let's just continue. Let's go to the next destination. Let's go to Kim's house.
You do, and for once your path seems eerily clear of danger and harm, leaving enough room for just casual conversation even up until Kim's house. No sign of the children keeping watch.
By the way, we need to visit the hospital too.
Yeah, there's a door at the end on Duck Street that it goes to where the food smell is, and I'm going to assume that the hospital is that way.
Before long, however, they're distracted by the one sound that can be heard through the silence of this area. The sounds of a music box operated by and pacifying the children for short periods of time.
So, should we sneak into there?
Get in, quick search, get out.
Both of you get to grab something of value to you in this short period of trance. Sin, you get yourself a revolver.
How many shots?
Just a single but quite powerful shot. Sachiko, you find freshly printed documents from the hospital, oddly enough.
Grab the document and run out.
Upon further inspection outside, you can see that they're cutout pictures of adults who would likely have once been the parents of some of the children in this ecosystem.
They are just pictures, nothing else?
Nope. Behind each also happens to be much older prints that the papers were originally used for, before the more recent prints. Notably, snippets of documents on Kevin, telling about how the public eye and the medical world were both fixated on the changes his body was going through.
So was Kevin a psychic or something? Can I understand from these files?
No, just that he was one of the very first recorded cases of a seemingly harmless but common new disease in the kindergarten evolving into something else. All of this, by the way, is paired up with scribbled-on controversial opinions of a particular doctor, Delilah, who at the time believed Kevin's condition to be the result of biological weaponry.
Okay. I think it's time for us to go to John's house.
No,
So,
you saw Pikachu at John's house, right?
Yeah, Pepe.
An important note, since Pikachu had been the mascot for clues left behind by, for lack of a better term, the original Sachiko. The one that our current Sachiko is modeled after.
Alright, let's go investigate John's, at least the outside, and this will have a lot of clues, and we've got to be very diligent.
You do. Another undisturbed journey leads you to the corridors filled with bloodied pictures plastered or hung up around a big room with broken windows. A room that seemingly sealed its window panes with piles of furniture from the inside.
What are the pictures?
The photos reveal themselves to be of adults, possibly related to the children in different ways. And while studying this, you discover one such picture that seemingly has been used to seal a peeping hole that's now revealed through your inspection. Through it, you think you can spy the very first adult in this place, and they're in a clown costume.
I whisper to Air, Pennywise is there.
Oh, goody. I'm gonna do a listen check just to see how many figures I think are inside.
Your ears not only reveal an estimate of moving bodies, but also pick up someone's weak pleas for death on the ground.
Are there any other holes for us around the house other than the one we already examined?
You discover 3. First, a broken down vent through which one of the thinner, nimble, and stealthy species of kids hurriedly escapes, with the same types of pictures that you just found around, glued, taped, and stamped all over him. Second, the blocked but unguarded doorway that reveals the more orderly and tidy furniture towers in John's house. And finally, a small opening through the furniture covering one of the windows, which is definitely guarded against anyone not sneaky enough by what seemed to be a child's frivolously circling eyes peeking through some fleshy, bloody mass.
Sachiko, if you and Alice want to go through the back, myself, Jacob, and Ellen can move through the front and we can meet in the middle.
I think this could be a good plan. You 3 focus on clearing the downstairs. As soon as I enter, I try to find the stairs and go upstairs and see what the fuck was going on with my other self.
Sachiko, you sneak past the first strange set of eyes, but only to climb up and discover another set, those of an adult's, and not as lively as the lower pair. Cinder, Alan, Jacob, and Alice. You all work together to unlock and unblock the unguarded path and detect through the orderly walls of furniture a grapple gun and restricted glimpse of 4 adult figures, 3 standing at the time, slowly moving, and another seemingly prone on the ground. One of the standing adults, namely the clown Sachiko first saw, has his back to you, and you can see an unusual tumor on it.
Oh, this is a tough one. First I'm gonna acquire the grapple gun, and then I will investigate the tumor further.
The tumor in this case happens to be a species of the children previously not seen by you. Swollen and smooth as a leech, but stitched onto this adult's back with sets of limbs akin to those of woodlice, and a head hooked through the bigger body's chest with eyes peeking through to the other side of the torso.
Kinetic strength is +4, and I will approach the clown, trying to sever his spinal cord.
With a weighty, deep-cutting swing of your machete, you chop the fuck out of it. Sachiko, you see the clown's top pair of eyes lose even more light and then get slowly lowered to the ground by Cinder.
I will go to the easiest prey next.
That happens to be the young adult on the floor that you hear the pleas from.
Can I study this creature and see if this as well has eyes in the same region that the clown did?
You notice the parasite's eyes. You notice that the woman must have had some control against the parasite and used it to wound their combined form with a pair of scissors, leaving them both with open but somehow not bleeding wounds. Although little, she seems to maintain a higher level of awareness and lucidity compared to the rest. Just enough to whimper and beg for death so far. Sachiko, studying the Pikachu plushie you found, you find out that it was likely taken from your other self by force. And you also find a key, a small container of dark purple liquid, a crystalline portable data drive, and a note that reads, "If you don't remember either, make the next one."
Oh, if you don't remember either. So I guess it means the next Sachiko. Always the main concern I had was why these particular people were cloned. And now it seems that it was done by the past versions of myself. Or, I don't know. We still need lots of answers.
Do we want to talk to the lady on the floor? I will whisper, can you hear me?
The pleasant surprise of familiar human interaction seems to sprinkle some joy onto her dull expressions, but her mutated and shared body begins to drag itself towards you with intent to harm, Cinder.
I'm going to pop off Mother's Love.
Success. You send the parasite child into a similar bout of dissociation as you did with the groups of children back there. And this, as you might have predicted, allows the adult woman's mind to gain more prominence over the body. The begs for death, now with more spatial awareness, become more hopeful pleas for rescue after she sees you.
Alright, sweetheart, we don't have much time before he gets back into you. I've got a couple of questions. I will tell you I don't know if I remove this thing from you, if you will survive.
Alright, you say so, preparing her for the questions.
Do you know anything about the Pikachu?
She responds with vague memories of not only Sachiko having been there long ago with the plushies, but also Cinder having been a prominent figure there as your codename, which was Emily Hopewell.
Do you know a woman named Delilah?
You ask that one, but the only answer you get out of that question is a barely audible 2347.
2347. Can we write that down?
I already did.
Good.
All right, last question.
Are there any secrets in this house that we need to know about?
Only gets you the delirious response. They're smarter than you think. And the creature takes over again.
Hit it.
This chimera is also put down, giving you, Sachiko, even more bodies to learn from.
Something has caused the virus to go haywire. I want to have a much clearer idea of what this something is. I want to know exactly what has caused the thing that has caused.
Which when translated to English means, what has caused the stress and trauma that seemingly activated hidden qualities in this strange virusy thingy? A question to which the dissection offers only 2 clues.
So the extreme state of mind needed for the activations are hard to achieve without abnormal stimuli. And secondly, all the bodies you've studied so far had been traumatized and activated very clearly and closely around the same time as one another.
Ooh. Okay, so should we go to Tesco?
Yeah, let's go.
On your way, you discover a trail of blood on Cow Street up to Duck Street.
By the way, I wonder how's Reza?
A helpful and very informative friend of theirs that they left back in the gym due to his limited mobility.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, he's either going to be dead or alive, so the only thing we can do is keep going.
I really hope he's not dead because I need to show the USB to him and ask him to what thing I can push that.
Yeah, I would really hope he's not dead too, but now that we have Jacob and Alan with us, he's alone with one leg.
Can we get closer to the blood so I know what kind of creature this blood belongs to?
You indeed can, because the children are all but hidden whispers and distant sprints in these particular corridors. And the blood is indeed human.
Shit.
Shit indeed, especially since the blood, you can all see, seems to stretch from the gym to the stairway from which the food smell is now dull and partially burned.
Can I sneak toward Tesco to scout and see what lies ahead?
Your scouting session reveals Tesco to be a fort of items more akin to an overgrown lost and found pile than a mountain of riches. When the rest of the party follows, Sin, you can manage to track and detect the whereabouts of the child who previously was sneaking out of John's. And he's also there.
I will quietly point him out. I'm going to send Jacob and Alan towards one of the exits. I am going to send Alice to the other exit, and Sachiko and I will go down the middle.
When I'm close enough, if I can do that, I will just throw my weight on him.
You fail to hold him down, Sachiko, and he sets off to escape, but is then cornered by the exits that all the rest of you guard. He seems to raise and showcase one of the pictures stuck to his body of related adults and families as some sort of desperate last resort. Luck obviously isn't on his side since all your weapons can easily cut through paper.
As I turn around the corpse of the poor boy, I read the documents.
The papers reveal, yet again, that Dr. Delilah's old world theories revolved around all of these strange mutations being caused by man-made weapons. But a forensic study of the child shows traces that Delilah, or a version of her at least, has previously passed through here in the New World too, and has had to fight this very child for some papers.
Right now is our time to go. I mean, we've got to head now. We've got to go.
Sin cuts the discussion short since she notices the lone hunter amongst the monstrous children, who usually guards the zoo, has moved far enough from this usually inaccessible area to allow the group entry.
We've got to be the quietest we've ever been, or else the cat, dog, cartoon freak will hear us.
Alright, Alan quickly starts picking the lock to the zoo. As the door opens, the creak alone, however, alerts the hyper-vigilant mutant and her pet, who then charge back right towards the zoo.
Yeah, I'm gonna pile everybody in.
Successfully done. The lock is put back on, now to keep the enemy out, with the party inside the zoo, temporarily reducing this lone zookeeper down to her angry shouts that refer to you, Cinder, by name and call you a thief.
Yeah, I don't know how long we have in here before she gets in here. We need to hurry.
All of you begin scavenging and studying the place as quickly as possible. Once part of the kindergarten, then turned into a big quarantine shower room by the doctors, and finally, in the New World ruins, turned into a twisted zoo by the keeper, who is still hitting against the door, by the way. This place is filled with all sorts of items, the most obvious of which obviously being the cages. They contain animals mostly dead and rotting, some mutated, some strangely preserved in their familiar old world shapes even. The only living animals, however, you find in recognizable condition happen to be some rats and a dog that's intentionally been wounded mute. Sin, you specifically realize that there are many of these cages here that had been broken open through means only known to those with particular animal training and veterinary backgrounds that you have.
Sachiko, my love,
Yeah?
the zoo is specifically meant for me.
A statement that proves even more true when Sachiko discovers already used and discarded vet equipment from a while ago, in quantities and conditions that suggest they were used to care for an animal close to the vet's heart.
Someone has Moxie. I hope it's me. Somewhere.
The door is starting to give way.
Well, that's fun. I'm done here. Anybody else have anything?
And since no one else does, they set up to open the door right before a charge and quickly go out and lock it from the other side again.
The only problem being that one of the pins in one of the door hinges breaks right off.
I'll sacrifice one of the arrows.
Okay, problem solved. It actually fits in perfectly.
I do believe we're going back down to the Muay Thai to check on Reza.
This journey, however, unlike your recent ventures to the other side, is cut short by the sheer number of the loud insiders obviously standing guard at all around that direction.
Okay, this is actually why I wanted to check on Reza, because I was sure that it was him that they were dragging. So if we want to have a chance of saving him, if we do have a chance of saving him, let's just run downstairs.
Run is what you do. Your path is yet again left eerily free of resistance in this direction. As you go down, you all quickly sink into darkness, smelling the food from earlier, now burnt and soon overwhelmed by the same stink that you remember oozing out of the pregnant one in the paper fort. You can now actually see the child responsible for the blood trail with fresh corpses and stasis-preserved blood bags from the hospital. She looks absolutely terrified, but seemingly not of you, and runs hastily towards where you guys came in through, only to have the gates closed on her and the rest of you by the rest of the children. So, you are all now locked in the basement that this building shares with the hospital.
Okay.
I mean, we knew it was a trap.
Do we have a flashlight?
Yes, we do. Would you like it?
Nah, I think you should use it. Is there any indication of any kind of document down here?
The flashlight clicks on. It only reveals fetuses and dead amalgamations in the long hallway ahead, though.
I want to sneak into the boiling room with the intention of scouting.
I'm going to start searching around here for either a lantern or another flashlight. Basically, some way to make sure that we have a perpetual light should we need it.
Off you go. Cinder, you find what you're looking for through the scraps and remains of what you believe to be other victims who were previously led and locked down here as well. And Sachiko, you're met with a room overgrown with patterns of flesh and veins on the wall, floor, and the ceiling.
At this point, as is Sachiko's usual instinct, she begins to cut through and dissect some of the growth, only to be met by a blind growth of gore that, despite her dodge, sucks a small chunk of flesh off her shoulder through its fleshy, sharp net of a mouth. A loud inhale interrupts the breathing the party previously heard from another room when this happens.
Nope. Do not like. No.
Can I study my own wound with forensics to learn about the thing?
You do so. After the pain tolerance and luck help you not make a sound, that is. What you learn is that the amount of suction and the location of the sound suggests the being had generated the force for it in another room, which could mean that this creature or creatures have grown into and through the walls of the building.
I look at Sachiko exasperated and say, "What did you do?"
I just scratched my shoulders really hard. I have this
Yeah?
bad habit of scratching.
With teeth and wire?
Yeah. There was a pump noise from somewhere. Where was the direction of the pump noise?
2 doors down, electric room.
I don't sneak into it. I sneakily open the door and take a look inside.
You can see strange lungs flowering and collapsing continuously in unison in between the rows of equipment and facilities that are in this room. Plant life and tendrils among it all seem to catch and slowly absorb the mists of blood, and small chunks of flesh there are seemingly fought over by these different strange bugs. Amidst all of this, you also find more finely shredded bits and pieces of the traditionally feminine clothes pieces you also noticed in the other room.
It's a whole fucking lovely ecosystem out here, isn't it? So, are you going to tell me that they only eat women for some reason? Can we send Alan inside to see what if they eat her? I go to him and I say, the things in there are really dangerous, but at the same time, I have never seen monsters so intriguing and fascinating. These things boggle my mind. You'd have no idea how unlike any living organism we have seen they are. I only wish you could see them, but they are too dangerous.
Your advertising works exactly as you want, and now in turn, Alan is trying to convince you to go and look together.
I go with Alan to the door and I stay behind him. Let me see if they try to attack.
Since you don't warn him of the gore on the ground, Alan is quick to find this tumor stalactite latching its mouth airtight against the side of his ribcage near his armpit. There's a sharp inhale that ends in an obstructed fleshy thought like and then quickly after, his ribs start cracking and bone and organ both are being sucked out and shredded through this stretched mouth net on this monstrous being. And at the end, leaving half a ribcage and a single dangling arm on a pair of legs to fall down.
As the creature lands on him, can I quickly go and peek in the other room to see what's happening there?
You quickly rush over and see these lungs fill up like bulging red sponges and then fold again, washing the room in this red mist that also gets a bit on your face. Alice, by the way, who had been following you through this whole ordeal, is completely unfazed by it and doesn't even seem to really be following most of what happened with much interest. But Jacob, however, seems to freeze and then bumble back quietly and in nausea to hibernate against the wall.
When Sachiko turns back, the AR is directly pointed at her. And Sin just looks at her and says, your turn to go in.
Sachiko doesn't pay attention.
While Sachika is doing her thing, I just sit down next to Jacob and take his hand.
Your general presence alone seems to trigger something in Jacob, and he just quickly bounces back up, searches himself for clues, and finds enough evidence in his wallet and his clothes to be the same cartoony cowboy as before, pretending to remember everything up to this point, as if to forget and roll with a guesstimate is the most natural thing to do.
Hey, Jacob, we've gotta talk.
She says, explain him about the birds and the bees.
Fuck off, Sachiko.
And then she goes to the laundry room, see what is there.
Cinder, you begin to study and tend to the born-again Jacob, who is ashamed of, but won't admit to, having had a mental reset, insisting on just continuing on. For you, Sachiko, almost as if evolved and adapted to hear the door click as a dinner bell, you see a pair of eyes staring at you from within the washing machines and begins to crawl out towards you, revealing itself to be this flexible but massive collection of limbs.
I snap my fingers loudly towards Sin, and then I do the dodge and poof.
You successfully dodge, and poof, into the piles of pungent clothes inside the room you go. The being, seemingly convinced that your silhouette moved to the outside of the room, hits the doorframe, but without trying to squeeze through. It basically has a layer of its massive limbs just peel off like fleshy Velcro, like and launch in a twisted humanoid shape out into the corridor where the rest of you are.
Okay, I'll aim center mass.
Success! The bullet drills right through wrist and into its conjoined guts, breaking its charge down into a tumble and then roll. Jacob tries to fire too, but only gets a click out of the gun he didn't remember to reload.
Free soliloquy, change weapons, and I will aim up for another shot once it comes back to my round.
Another successful shot. The bulk of the body is now grounded and dead right by your feet, but a thinner form still peels off its back unharmed, this time to be finally one-shot decimated by Jacob, who wasn't prepared for the kickback of the revolver he switched to, the same revolver you gave him, and now he has to go get it from the ground.
And the other half of the corpse is still living?
No, however, this distant rumble of horrific hisses, howls, and growls start to echo and well up in the hallways in response to the gunshots.
I think it's time to stealth.
Now separated and sneaking towards their hopes of escape, separately through vents and utility tunnels, they find each other again at a seemingly closed-off section, well hidden within the underground maze of the facilities. Entering the quarantine chamber that leads to that section, one that could potentially close off access to most less intelligent beings, they notice scratches on its walls, and especially on the door that leads further into the hospital side of the conjoined buildings.
The first thing is to close the door.
Yep. Is there a lock on the door as well?
No, the door that has a lock is ahead and has extra scratches, feces, and bits of clothing stuck to it, while the door you guys closed behind you and came in through, that one has none of that.
I'm going to look to Sachiko, point to my big knife, and I'm going to point to like the wedge in the door and basically pantomime that I'm going to break the doorknob, pry the door open.
As the door opens, Sachiko says room service.
The door actually just clicks and swings right open, as if the lock had already been disengaged, ready for someone to pass through from the other side. And you all can see an impeccably dressed woman cower back from in front of the door you opened, backwards into the spacious room that mixes bedroom, nursery, and a playground all together. There's books, documents, and screens all in an orderly mess with a hatch up to the hospital. And perhaps the most obvious thing, flocks of humanoid but uniquely proportioned youth. Two of the children, seemingly the eldest, seem to be made up in the same traditionally feminine clothes that you, Sachiko, saw by the monstrous lungs. But most pressingly, the woman in the middle of all of this growls at you all to leave. The young ones here, by the way, are very clearly not of the same species as whatever the fuck was in the kindergarten.
Ready my weapon and say, look, lady, we don't want to be here with your kids. We just want to get up the hatch. We'll close the door and go.
No. Sachiko points at the documents and says, I want to look at those. I would appreciate if you don't keep promising them that we're just leaving.
Sachiko's insistence quickly sours the relations, and the woman rallies her horde of children against them.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say, you know the sad part, kids? She has you locked down in here like prisoner. There's a whole world out there.
And so begins a bizarre battle of motherliness for control over beings that carefully analyze and judge each side's maternal weight, based solely on the limited media the room has had to offer them.
Since she's not in the vent anymore, she starts pulling things out of her panties and returning them to her pockets.
You do that.
A decision that begins to confuse, distract, and shock some of the variables in the fight.
Sachiko, being emboldened by the previous reception of her actions, she sits down, drops her pants, and begins to piss right in front of everyone.
With Sachiko's weaponized confusion distracting the woman, Sin wins the children over and opens the woman's shield for Alice to begin stabbing her way too many times.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep singing and keep these kids distracted.
Dance and dance they do, hopping and turning and bonding all the way through to the hospital.
I just don't know how I feel about leaving these kids down here by themselves.
Can they fight?
I mean, they have the muscle.
The path up gives you, Sachiko, plenty of time to study them and learn that they're actually the result of natural human reproduction in this world, despite their unique proportions and even wildly varied genetics.
Do a sight and hearing just to see if I can see anything around or hear.
You find yourselves in a car park, which softly echoes the sounds of the rain outside through its damaged pipes and faculties. There's quite a number of very old and dissected vehicles, and some newer ones made of all manner of garbage.
Should we check out the cars?
Sure.
You discover that nearly every one of the vehicles has some bits and pieces missing from it.
Interesting.
So, we're dealing with people.
A hypothesis that's proven further true by the debris you find of a battle that took place here not too long ago. And a trail of salvaged scrap, by the way, leads you to the machines and devices that all of these different parts were used to craft.
So, Sachiko picks up one of these devices and then she hits it really hard on the ground.
Oh god, please tell me it doesn't blow up.
Lucky for Sachiko, it does not. The sound it makes suggests that it could have been some sort of car-mounted and technologically advanced speaker.
I just think that if we don't know how they are used, we don't want them used on us in the future. So my suggestion is destroying all of these.
Okay. Hey kids, you wanna break some shit?
Destroy they do, picking up one after another and following them like breadcrumbs to uncharted territory. Every step first scouted ahead by Sachiko before it's taken by the rest.
Sachiko returns to Cinder, says the coast seems to be clear as far as I could go without leaving you behind. But at the same time, it seems that there was this fight some weeks ago and someone was shooting bullets which strangely didn't kill anyone. One of them was killed by a car. The other one was killed by falling on a knife. So maybe they were fighting some monsters and two of them got killed in the way, but maybe not. Maybe they were fighting each other. I don't know.
This pattern of battle and accidental death repeats itself over and over as they go deeper and finally find the map of the hospital.
So, my question is this. In building A, is there any specific place that, like a warden's office or a president's office or a record room?
You set off for the records room and head office, but you do hear the hiss and fizz of thermite being used the floor above through the elevator shaft that's right by your destination.
Yeah, we'll look at the elevator first.
This detour towards the sound leads them to items not far off what's being done, just the floor below it. A bag containing packs of dynamite, another container of the dark purpley liquid that Sachiko had found from the plushie, specific weapon parts and paraphernalia, thermite, and some of the same documents they had read of Dr. Delilah.
I'll move down the hallway a little bit and go to Sachiko and say, they're gonna be pissed. They have a rifle. I want you guys to take cover.
She sneaks into the door of the head office.
The security door to which cannot be picked with Alan gone, resulting in louder measures becoming necessary. The party is shortly after met by a flashbang that temporarily blinds Jacob, who is watching their back, and temporarily deafens Sachiko.
So I dodge and roll toward air.
The children, Alice, and the spooked dog all quickly follow you into the head office, but Jacob is hit by multiple bullets.
Sachiko shouts, "We don't need to fight."
Okay, hold on now, shouts a traditionally feminine voice, followed by a rough voice from where the shots were fired, replying to her, "What, so you had a change of heart?"
What do you mean? You started the fight. We didn't fight you.
"Shut up, I'm not talking to you," responds the rough voice. "You can't be mean to me," says the feminine voice. "Shut up, I'm not talking to you," then repeats the rough voice, this time shouted up the elevator shaft instead of down the corridor.
Okay. Can I see the situation with Jacob?
As you peek, you know that Jacob has taken at least 3 shots and with a buttload of medical items and attention would only have 10% chance of survival.
Man, he's useful, but 10% chance is not good at all. I'm gonna holler up to Delilah, because I know she's up there. Delilah, we need your help. Your guy shot ours, and he may die.
The now identified voice replies in apathy and then shouts for her items back after being informed by the rough voice that they're missing.
I don't know you.
No. Let me. Sure. Come here and take your stuff.
And with that, Delilah can be heard ordering her goon to get the items back and shoot the thieves, if necessary, which prompts him to ask for the items rolled over down the corridor.
Okay, so this is a change of plan. Sachiko looks knowingly at air, and then she takes one of the black goose and she rolls it really lightly so that the guy needs to get closer to get it. And she says, "Here you are."
Yeah, I'm gonna wait till the vial is close enough and then I'm just gonna fucking shoot it.
A maneuver that only furthers the chaos and confusion, as the goon holds out a helmet on some sort of stick, concluding that the shot was aimed for the decoy he deployed, not noticing the container that the shot misses near him. Through and through, the fight continues with more shots, throws, and flashbangs until one bold decision.
I'm gonna take out one of the things of dynamite and light it. Perfect aim again, accuracy plus dex, throwing it towards dude.
With a perfectly cooked stick of dynamite, the elevator shaft goes boom, tipping things in their favor, as the goon coughs in the debris, telling Delilah to save herself. Delilah, however, only peeks over from the floor above and asks for her thermite.
Save our guy and we'll give you back your thermite.
Delilah just throws a medical bag down. And it almost hits the wounded goon, by the way, who's just now dismembered on the ground, struggling to light a cigarette.
I help him with lighting his cigarettes and then go take the bath.
You unfortunately then find yourself on the other end of Delilah's handgun, asking again for her thermite.
Not before our guy is cured.
And miraculously, the operation goes smoothly, and stabilizing Jacob takes just long enough for the smoking goon to expire too. With Delilah still brandishing her frown and handgun, Sachiko studies the goon's body, discovers it's a clone like herself, but that he was created very recently, and not with the same wave of pod activations that created her and Cinder.
I guess Delilah has this loyal soldier that she keeps copying for herself.
I am going to just talk to Delilah casually and say, "We saw your paper about the kindergarten. We went through there. We talked to the one kid. So you think this was a biological attack?"
A notion that Delilah seems oddly confused about. But on the bright side, the conversation continues long enough for Sin to fully dismiss the gun as fake. The back and forth seems to not only reveal that Delilah does not possess all the memories of the Delilah they're after, but that she's actively trying to forget and feign forgetfulness about whatever she's discovered about her past self too, giving them an entirely different image of why she's trying to break into the documents chambers and what she actually plans to do with them.
Sachiko says the first Delilah, the original Delilah, used to live when the apocalypse happened, and that was close to 200 years ago. You, the one Delilah, how could you have lived for 200 years?
To which Delilah's explanation is of first-gen humans who had a treatment that allowed them to live through the apocalypse at the cost of memory abnormalities that favor short-term memory, in strange ways similar to their friend Jacob. She presents herself as one of them, getting angrier and closer to Sachiko as the dispute continues. The scar she shows for the treatment does not convince Sachiko's medical gaze, and the fact that she spaces her answers out not to overlap with the sounds of distant passerbys shouting for her to go with them leads Sachiko to think she's a clone, desperate to keep her disguise.
I am going to start making my way up to her level. And while I'm walking or climbing, I'm going to say, "So you were first generation?"
Now coming closer as the good cop and keeping her busy with the conversations that affirm the disguise that she's obsessed with, Cinder manages to confirm that Delilah had been using the thermite not to open, but to destroy the contents of the numbered databanks one by one, not knowing which one is hers. Delilah, now having been made comfortable, lets other types of information unwittingly shine through as well, like the fact that she explains things in ways that suggest photographic memory, but without any memory of the old world, qualities that belong to the second generation humans, who spent the apocalypse in cryostasis. The two of them convinced that Delilah herself in her current state is more of an obstacle to knowing more about Old World Delilah. The approach changes.
I start going back down the ladder. And as I'm going down, I look into her eyes and I say, 2, 3, 4, 7.
Panic and aggression for the thermite ensues.
I'm going to the elevator shaft and I'm screaming Delilah is a second generation so that everyone who's accompanying you can hear it.
She sets the bait, prepping for Delilah to pounce.
I want to dodge in a way that she might fall into the elevator shaft.
And with that, Delilah falls to her end.
Sachiko looks at Sin and says, well, one other colorful personality we don't need to worry about.
A few dissections and scavengings later, Sachiko and Alice go to the record room / head office place. Jacob watches the corridor, the children and the dog from the ground on which he lays, and Cinder goes to investigate the sounds of different groups fighting throughout the large hospital building. Cinder then manages to land a deal for ammo and other utilities with a radical human supremacist group.
Yeah, I know, but this is worth it.
Now fast forward a dozen unexpected crises that Cinder fishes in for better and better rewards, and she comes back with boxes full of hard-earned food, ammo, armor, and medical equipment.
Cinder just comes in all smiles with all this shit and say, hey, guess what? I have medical gear. All for you.
But she's met by a frustrated and sleepy Sachiko, who has mapped out the apocalypse through the patient files and side notes of a conspiracy theorist, complemented by warnings from Delilah. She knows some lived through the changes of Old World to the New World. She knows of the second generation who got out of cryostasis after, and she knows she was born into this world as what's now called the fourth generation, and deduces there must be a third. But nowhere in this maze of info can she find out by whose hands and why she was chosen to be brought into this world.
Hey, Sachiko, I love you. I think we should all sleep. We should probably eat, and we can tackle this tomorrow.
Sachiko is pouting, but she doesn't say no or yes.
I will take her hand, little spoon or big spoon.
A little spoon.
A rest not too soon interrupted by some of the strange children making sounds. While barely audible to Sin and Sachiko's ears, the sounds prompt audible responses and movements from above, below, and outside the doors and windows.
I take the safety off of my gun under the vest.
You ready your gun in record speed and already know you can take out at least 2 of them in a single round. But since you also hear and feel a gun propped up behind you too, you know that getting shot yourself will be inevitable if you do.
I did what I had to do to protect the children.
We did suspect, don't worry, we're not here to hurt you. You can hear Alien say, this strange humanoid creature that's neither like the children, nor the monsters, nor the 2 of you or Alice, obviously. The gun pointing is just etiquette, says another familiar figure who slowly opens the door. And then the rest of the members, who altogether are the group you just fought against for loot, Cinder, just come out into the room. A group of not just humans, much like your own group.
Sachiko says, is this the Mutant Child Protective Services?
Oh, the children are gonna be fine. It's you and me that have to worry, says a human member, beginning to warn of an approaching storm, deadly to all remnants of the old world, but joyous to the strange children of the new world. Meanwhile, Sachiko starts her own endeavors again.
Sachiko asks Alien for permission to study him.
My real name is Avalon, by the way.
He replies, gladly letting Sachiko do so.
So, why exactly are y'all helping us?
While there's a lot of people making them, the number of people who actually don't want to immediately kill these children is lower than you think. That and also Alien's got a figurative hard-on for the Asian chick, says Looney, whose explosives not too long ago almost blew Sin's limbs off.
Okay. What's the game plan?
Well, we're too far away from any viable shelters. Edward shrugs. Do you have undone business? He asks, oddly in peace with their impending doom.
The pod rooms we came out of seemed pretty secure. Could that maybe work as a shelter?
While the answer was no, Sin's shot in the dark actually hits an unexpected target, inspiring the merged groups with a plan to help Sachiko and Sender escape the storm without actually surviving it.
We're actually not too far from the pods, you know.
With faith in one last plan, they leave behind all the hard-earned loot, the unopened datasafe 2347, and the patient files to hopefully re-upload themselves back onto the grid.
At least we have some people who might answer some questions along the way.
A statement they both rely on as they rush towards where they began.
So, how many of these storms have there already been?
More than is worth counting, says Looney. They happen every change of season, so for an early 4th gen like myself, there's already been more than 20. Edward adds.
Was Sachiko the one who made us?
Sachiko wonders, after Avalon confesses that he knows the first generation Sachiko.
I may have been her lover for decades now, but I still can't be sure. She may have had a hand in it, since she's very eager to make and meet more of you, but the birth of 4th gens as a whole is definitely beyond her capabilities and influence.
He answers as they navigate their way back underground.
We need to find a different way around the kindergarten. We barely made it out. I'm going to use the map to plan out how we can get around the kindergarten but remain underground, please.
With that principle in mind, Sin guides them all right back under the streets they sneakily navigated before. Streets that are now made even more ominous in their empty silence and decorated with strange burrows and holes that stretch all the way to the party down underground and create new paths.
Oh shit, I know this one. This is the immortal Necron the other Sachiko had written about.
Great. Like we are already in a rush and aren't gonna die. Alright.
The group finally arrives at the underground chasm of pods they started their journey from, but finds it completely different and housing an old clone friend of theirs.
Sachiko says, "Wait, is Artie still alive?"
She asks, seeing the facilities they started from turned into a makeshift biology lab.
Hello, sister.
Replies Arthur, waving in childish joy before going back to carelessly messing with the specialized equipment he built.
Fuck you.
Kristen, the player behind Cinder, says, knowing their strange friend from before would soon have to say goodbye to all he's built as well.
I'd say we come full circle, but shit is worse than when we started. Anyway, I'll help Lumbrier lower the pods and use Mother's love to convince Artie to help and to say bye to the children.
Sure thing, little sister.
So, who's going first? Asks Edward while explosions and gunshots can be heard in the distance, with the rest of the pack trying to hold seemingly invincible beings back for long enough.
Aren't you a clone too? Are you not coming?
I'd rather end on my own terms this time.
Sachiko volunteers and says, "If you think about it, we're actually virgins again, by the way."
I mean, it depends how you look at it. Either way, that can be changed easily if you don't mind it being a rush.
Sachiko says, "Listen, I love you, and you're very sexy. But what I need right now, in this situation, is a dick between my legs,"
says Sachiko, going to one of the laid-down pods that Lumbry repurposed for her.
Sachiko invites Avalon to have sex with her.
Yeah, that's fine. Cinder will say her goodbyes to everyone and hugs Alice for the last time, if she's comfortable with it, and also gets a piece of wood to bite on for the pain.
Jacob, happy as ever just to be around, tips his cowboy hat to his clone friends, knowing full well he can't be part of what they're planning before death.
Arthur doesn't care about the plan, he just wants to fight the immortal monster thing.
Alice and Arthur, in their own very different ways, seem to not pay any heed to the goodbyes, and fight the creature that slowly peeks through the entry.
Sachiko is very caring, and delicate during sex, very intimate, which might surprise some people who might know her. And she bites a piece of psychedelic fruit to suppress the pain.
As guilty as this makes me feel, in the short time that we've spent together, I feel like I've come closer to who Sachiko is than I've ever been in my life,
admits Avalon, as they embrace and get intimate.
You better take good care of my children.
And with that, the drilling into their skulls begins, cutting through flesh and bone to plug makeshift equipment against the green filament that makes up their nervous system.
Artie tries to lift an entire pod and shove it through the hole in the wall.
Cinder and Sachi are copied for another life after the storm, seeing Artie throw a bunch of shelves and then an entire pod, one of which might miss slightly and unfortunately hit and reveal a bit of Alice's nervous system from her skull.
Oh god.
But also perhaps fortunately does reveal her to be a clone too.
Okay. So Artie will try to drag her back and upload both of them too, hopefully.
Now dragging the broken Alice back from the rushing battle and Storm at the door to join their next selves as well, the party dies. And so, our story begins.